On March 25, 1911, fire broke out inside the Triangle Waste Company in New York City. The factory occupied upper floors of the Ash Building near Washington Square, where hundreds of garment workers, many of them young immigrant women, cut, sewed, pressed, and packed shirtwaists for a growing fashion market. In less than 20 minutes, the workplace became one of the deadliest industrial disasters in American history, exposing how ordinary doors, stairs, and exits can become matters of life and death.
The Triangle Factory belonged to a larger world of speed and pressure. Garment production depended on crowded rooms, long hours, flammable cloth, paper patterns, thread, wooden tables, oil, machines, and strict supervision. Workers were expected to produce quickly, and the building's upper floors concentrated labor above the street. To customers, a shirtwaist was a modern garment. To the people making it, the garment came from a workplace where fire safety competed with profit, control, and pace. Many Triangle workers were Jewish and Italian immigrants, or the children of immigrants. They brought wages home to families living in dense neighborhoods shaped by language, religion, rent, and work. Their lives were not defined only by hardship. They had friendships, ambitions, politics, humor, and skill. But the factory system placed their bodies inside risk. When historians name the victims, the disaster becomes more than a reform milestone. It becomes a room full of individual futures cut short.
The fire likely began in a scrap bin or under a cutting table where fabric waste could ignite quickly. Flames spread through light material faster than workers could control them. Buckets of water were inadequate. The fire hose did not deliver enough pressure. Panic moved through the floors as smoke thickened and heat grew. In a high building, delay becomes deadly. Every second spent discovering that a route is blocked or crowded is a second the fire uses to close another route.
Some workers escaped by stairs, elevators, and the roof. Others found doors locked or impossible to open in the confusion. The reasons involved workplace control, theft prevention, and management practices, but the result was simple and terrible. People who needed a path out did not have one. A locked or obstructed exit is not a minor violation during a fire. It is a decision made before the emergency that becomes fatal during the emergency. The fire department arrived quickly, but their ladders could not reach the highest floors where workers were trapped. Nets tore under the force of falling bodies. Crowds gathered in the street as people jumped from windows to escape flames. The public nature of the disaster mattered. New Yorkers did not only read about unsafe labor in reports, they saw bodies on the pavement below a modern building in one of the most visible parts of the city. 146 workers died. Some burned, some suffocated, and some jumped. The number is repeated often, but each repetition risks becoming abstract. The victims included teenagers and young adults whose names filled newspapers, union lists, family records, and memorials. Their deaths turned a factory address into a public accusation. The city could not pretend that industrial risk was hidden in distant mines or remote mills. It was here, above familiar streets.
Photographs from the Triangle Fire and its aftermath are essential evidence. They show the ash building, fire apparatus, crowds, covered bodies, funeral processions, and the faces of victims preserved in records. These images are not filler. They show the distance between the factory windows and the street, undeniable.
The disaster came after years of labor organizing in the garment industry. The uprising of shirtwaist workers in 1909 had demanded better pay, shorter hours, and safer conditions. Some Triangle workers had been part of that struggle. The fire, therefore, did not appear in a political vacuum. It arrived in a city already arguing over whether workers had the right to challenge owners, organize unions, and demand that workplaces respect human life as well as production schedules. Public grief became public pressure. Funerals and memorial meetings drew enormous crowds. Reformers, labor activists, journalists, clergy, and ordinary citizens demanded answers. Frances Perkins, who witnessed the fire's aftermath and later became United States Secretary of Labor, described the event as a turning point in her public life. The disaster converted observation into obligation. It made workplace safety a civic issue that could not be left only to employers. Investigations and trials followed, but legal accountability proved limited. The factory owners were acquitted of manslaughter, and civil settlements were small compared with the loss. That outcome deepened anger because it revealed how hard it was to punish structural negligence under existing law. The question was no longer only who started the fire. It was how a system had allowed crowded rooms, inadequate exits, and weak enforcement to remain normal until the bodies made them visible.
New York responded with major reforms. The Factory Investigating Commission examined workplaces across the state, documenting hazards and recommending laws on fire drills, unlocked exits, sprinklers, sanitation, hours, and inspections. The Triangle Fire did not create the idea of regulation from nothing, but it gave reformers evidence that was impossible to dismiss. Safety became a matter of enforceable rules rather than private assurances.
The building itself survived and still stands, which makes the story unusually concrete. Visitors can look upward and understand the vertical trap. Workers above, street below, ladders too short, stairways too few or blocked, elevators overwhelmed. The survival of the structure can feel disturbing because the city around it is alive. That contrast is the point. Disasters do not happen in separate worlds. They happen inside ordinary streets that continue after the dead are carried away.
Triangle also warns against treating safety improvements as inevitable progress. Laws passed because people organized, investigated, argued, mourned, and refused to let the fire become a brief sensation. Without pressure, grief can fade while conditions remain. The lesson applies beyond garment factories. Warehouses, kitchens, delivery systems, high-rise offices, construction sites, and informal workplaces all depend on whether exits, alarms, inspections, and worker voices are treated as essential.
The phrase locked doors has become the shorthand for Triangle, but the deeper issue is locked power. Workers had limited control over conditions that shaped their survival. Management controlled exits, pace, materials, supervision, and response to complaints. A workplace becomes dangerous when the people closest to risk are the least able to change it. Real safety requires listening to those who know where the hazards are, because they live beside them every shift.
Modern fire codes, marked exits, unlocked doors, alarms, sprinklers, occupancy limits, and drills can seem ordinary because they work quietly. Triangle reminds us that many ordinary protections are memorials in disguise. They exist because earlier workers died without them. When a door opens outward, when a stairwell is clear, when an inspector can enforce a rule, the past is present. Safety is not bureaucracy at its best. It is memory turned into practice.
The Triangle Shirtwaist Factory fire endures because it reveals the moral structure hidden inside a building. Cloth, machines, doors, stairs, owners, workers, inspectors, customers, and laws were connected before the flames appeared. The disaster's final lesson is direct. A workplace is not safe because it is modern, busy, or profitable. It is safe only when the people inside can leave when danger comes, and when their lives matter before the smoke reaches the ceiling.